FrAuditor Mania. I love you so much. Thanks. You are so awesome. You are super. Eagle Nick says it. You are super. And I thank you.
Good afternoon. What's up, everybody? How are we doing this fine afternoon, this lovely Wednesday afternoon? I know this wasn't planned. I just know I haven't been here for a while, and I said, you know what? I think this would be a nice afternoon just to hop on a quick live, hang out with y'all just for a wee bit, because why the frick not? How are we doing? Well, that's enough about you. Let's talk about me. I am completely swamped. Life is lifing, but that's normal. But yeah, I'm here, alive. Who's here? Let's see. Wow, got a couple people in the chat already. Cyberax, good afternoon. Oops. Good afternoon, Cyberax. Hey, Roundup. You're in a lot of these lunchtime streams. Got to have you on panel, hang out, chit chat for a bit one of these days. And I meant what I said the other night when we were streaming with Exposure. If we do make our way down to Florida, I'll hit you up for sure. We can all link up for sure. And Bookie Worm, welcome. I know you were in chat last night on Boots live stream. When we were all on panel yelling at Chris Ryder. Yo, Chris Ryder. Again, I don't talk about Chris Ryder as much as I should because he's covered to death. But that guy, that guy has issues. And it's so hypocritical. It doesn't understand anything. Common sense is not common in Chris Ryder's mind. So, whatever. But lovely to see you. But we're not going to talk about Chris Ryder. We're going to talk about something a wee bit different. Now, just bear with me as I pull it up, because I'm technically working, but I need a break. And I was going to eat, but who needs food? I might just pull up an email chain that I had. Just 1 second, please. Hey, Paul Cohen, good afternoon. Great to see you here, buddy. So, I'm trying to find. Here it is. So, and I was a bit skeptical to even talk about this or show this. Peck, member for 10 months. You've been a member for a while. Wow, 10 months. Lovely. Thanks for being a supporter. I'm recording this. It's your constitutional right to record, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Thanks for coming. I'm skeptical about showing this because it was going to be more of something I'd reveal later if it ever got to that point. I just find this whole thing just strange, and it just doesn't make sense. Hey, Mag D5, great to see you, pal. It just didn't make sense when this took place. So I'm referring to an email correspondence I had with DMA's lawyer. Let me just pull it up. And do we see? Okay, I see. Okay, good. So I guess I made the mistake of saying, you know what? I want to give this guy a chance. We've been going at each other's necks, for whatever. I mean, I don't even consider myself going after DMA's lawyer. It's more, one, I didn't appreciate how he's only going after a selected group of people that are my friends. I just was not a fan of that. I was not a fan of the way he was trying to solicit clients, which, yes, lawyers can't do that. You can't create a community post and then say, email me, like that solicitation of attorney services. That's not allowed. But, I said, in my mind, the banter, the name calling, the making fun of my wife, all that stuff, it has to be an act. I said, let me actually try and have a conversation with this guy and reach out and see, like, can we like just have a conversation where I can just hear the guy out, So I'm going from tab to tab, bear with me. So I sent him an email, and genuine email, very genuine email. Hope you're well and in good health. What we've said about each other doesn't matter to me. What matters now is having an open, meaningful conversation about the legal issues we've both brought up. Now, again, he tells everyone I'm the dumbest person on YouTube. Sure. Fine. He takes for granted the fact I've worked in the legal sector for almost 5 years. That doesn't mean I'm a lawyer. It doesn't mean I know as much as a lawyer. I keep saying that, but I know how the basics work. Yes. Well, yeah, he's been fat shaming her. He made community posts about her, calls her a buffet destroyer, refers to her as my plus size wife. He's called her chunky, and like it's ridiculous. Like, I don't understand where this came from. Where all of a sudden now him and DMA are just going to target content creators' wives. But it's very distasteful to me. But whatever. Encrypted message from Now, anyway, I said, even though you continue to criticize, insult, and mock my quote-unquote legal text, I understand I've never claimed to be an attorney. Again, one day would like to become an attorney. That was my goal as a kid. I got derailed, unfortunately. I'm still working in the legal sector just fine. One day, we'll see what happens in the near future. Now, since you already follow what I post online, I'd like to extend a formal invitation for a live conversation on my YouTube channel. My intention is exactly what I'm sitting here. Transparent, civil discussion focused on solely reasoning, interpretation, and the legal positions that you believe apply. And I meant that. I meant that. No insults, no hostility, just an opportunity to exchange viewpoints. If you have followed my channel for any period of time, you know that I am very, very polite and respectful and willing to have conversations with people on the other side, as long as they're not yelling at me, insulting me, and calling me names. Like, if we're on two different sides of the spectrum and you're willing to have a conversation, I'm happy to do that. I've had that with PDF Elves, GS for a period, and it wasn't the biggest fan of me and him. And I have had conversations, and we all can get along. This whole where we have to just call people names and insult people on the internet, that all because they have a difference of opinion, it's ridiculous. So I extended that invitation, and I said, the insults for me and my family and sensitive comments, I'm not bothered by it. It's the engaged environment we engage in. And I told him, I'm like, look, I won't mention you in return. Again, I just want a clear understanding of what his perspective is of all this and what he's actually trying to accomplish, because I'm not even sure if he's even vocalized that. How do you think Counselor Newman responded to this? Whenever you want my favorite mailroom boy. Now, come on. I just think that's completely distasteful. That's complete, utter nonsense. And he's even said before, oh, I don't mean that in a racial way. I don't know your ethnicity. If that's the case, how is it that you've made numerous community posts, numerous shorts depicting me as a short, fat African-American male, yet you don't know my ethnicity and don't believe that using the term quote-unquote boy isn't sensitive? Again, doesn't necessarily bother me. It just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever, the logic behind this, which I said is why this whole thing was strange. And then it's just going back and forth, like he wants an apology. You want to apologize? Imagine an attorney telling a lawyer on the other side that disagrees with his argument that he wants an apology. Like, that doesn't happen. And I told him the truth. Like, he's demonstrating his insecurities here. I'm taking my Thai ladyboy to Bucks Cardinals game. And I said, there's no need for the insecure or hurts feelings comments. I said, did you not read what I said? Like, at this point, let's just have an amicable conversation. Let's drop the internet games. I'm not past that. And I tried to be cordial with him. He was talking about Bucks Cardinals games. I told him Tampa Bay Bucks and the Arizona Cardinals, the two teams I dislike the most because the Bucks have dominated Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. In fact, I think in the playoffs, I should have specified. The last two times they faced them in the playoffs, they beat the brakes off of us. And the Cardinals knocked us off of the 2009 playoffs, where we should have won. McNabb's touchdown to Deshaun Jackson with 8 minutes to go. I swore we were going to the Super Bowl. We would have destroyed Pittsburgh, but Arizona ruined that. Whatever. And then here's the whole thing. First, he says, people invited us. He said, people invited us to join their stream. I don't even know who Really Cool News is. I know who NCR is. I don't even know who Really Cool News is. No one's ever extended an invitation to me personally to join a stream. Maybe we could. I don't know. So I said, I don't even know who that is. Are you afraid to join my panel? Because I keep asking him, give me a day or time, and he's evading the question. And then he goes, afraid? Are you retarded? I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that. He uses that term repeatedly to refer to people, and I think that's just absolutely disgusting. Again, this is an attorney that being a jerk is not against the law as an attorney, but you would think you would have some standards, some sense of any type of professionality. Whatever. And then he says he prefers to go on neutral panels where third party controls who appears for ethical purposes. How is it you are now claiming that you will only go on live streams because of ethical purposes when you are one of the most unethical people, unethical attorneys, and you make that clear that you're proud of it by referring to yourself as the unhinged attorney, but you only go on panels for ethical purposes? It just doesn't make sense. This was the best part. Your email was vague according to ChatGPT, and I don't do anything without ChatGPT's approval. I said, you don't make the decisions without ChatGPT? That's strange. Funny how you call me retarded, yet you can't make a simple decision on your own intuition without a computer. I wonder who actually has issues. That's right. He admitted and acknowledged that he doesn't do anything without ChatGPT's approval. He admitted that. Those are his words. No one else's. He cannot. People have made fun of him saying that his pleadings look like they're from ChatGPT. He admitted in writing. Those are his words. He doesn't do anything without ChatGPT's approval. Which is what we're going to segue into. I am going to play a video about how dangerous ChatGPT is. This is from Legal Eagle. How to use ChatGPT to ruin your legal career. And it's interesting because his most recent pleading, he was required to draft a 5-page brief supporting his argument as to why the Northern District of California has jurisdiction over his case, Regan Benson against Blackheart Knight. He did not put a brief together. He did not put 5 pages together. He put together a document, a declaration of some sort that's barely 2 pages and added a cover sheet and an exhibit that says, oh, that's a 5-page brief. No case law, nothing. And someone said to me this morning, I think he used ChatGPT for that. I won't say that. I won't accuse him of that. But if, as he admitted, he does everything he doesn't do anything, rather, without ChatGPT's approval, maybe I could put 1 and 2 together. But let's have a look at this video from Legal Eagle. I'm going to step away, not even for 2 minutes, so we're just going to play for a few seconds. Please, Legal Eagle, please don't sue me. Please don't sue me. Idiot. All right. We're going to play it for a bit.
Can you tell me about a lawyer who around and found out?
I'm sorry, I can't find the information. I'm only up to date through 2021.
I have the information right here. Oh, so AI is going to replace lawyers. Well, not anytime soon, because it finally happened. We've had our first sighting of AI lawyering in the wild, and it was bad. It was very, very bad. 2 lawyers in New York deputized ChatGPT to do their legal research in an airline tort case and found themselves in a direct flight to sanctions land courtesy of one very pissed off federal judge. These guys may have ended their legal careers for a case which was always dead on arrival. And along the way, they became internet famous, bringing the entire legal community together to point and laugh as one. So, thanks guys. So our story begins back in August of 2019 on flight 670 from San Salvador to New York's JFK Airport. Passenger Roberto.
And let me just super quick before I step away, let me just make something clear. As someone that works in the legal sector, every lawyer has tried to use AI at one point. I know my previous job, my boss said, well, play around with ChatGPT, see if it can help us in any way. And I can tell you from almost a year of playing around with it, the only thing ChatGPT is good for is drafting the bodies of correspondence. It cannot conduct legal research because it creates case law that does not exist or completely misquotes or misapplies case law. And we did a test because there are opinions by judges that are very clear, and we put the case into ChatGPT. ChatGPT had no idea how to decipher it. No idea. And I see complaints that are, I know the templates of what a complaint look like. We put in draft a slip and fall complaint. They're not good. They're not good. They're repetitive. They're very basic. It's something an entry-level paralegal could draft just by Googling whatever. I don't know. That's why you see all these pro se complaints that look exactly the same. Yeah, people just slap it into ChatGPT and it drafts the whole thing. So, yeah, just for perspective, everything Legal Eagle here is saying is correct because from experience, ChatGPT and AI, it just doesn't work. And as I said, it might replace lawyers one day, but maybe 100 years from now. I don't know. Anyway, let's play on. I'll be right back.
Mata claims that an employee of Avianca Airlines, quote, struck him in his left knee with a metal serving cart, causing him to suffer severe personal injuries. In February of 2022, Mata sued in New York State Court, alleging that he suffered, quote, grievous and painful injuries to his body and limbs and damage and injury to his nervous system and became sick, sore, lame, and disabled, causing him to be incapacitated, which is a lot of hassle for a bag of pretzels and a warm Sprite. Now, Avianca removed the case to federal court immediately, which means that the New York County Clerk took no action and simply transferred it to the Southern District of New York, which is a federal court, where the suit was assigned to U.S. District Judge Kevin Cassatt. Not every case qualifies for what's called federal removal, but here Avianca cited multiple separate grounds for Article 3 jurisdiction to get it into the federal courts. Now, first, international flights are governed by something called the Montreal Convention, an international treaty signed by the US government. And second, the parties are what's called diverse because Mr. Mata is a citizen of New York and Avianca is headquartered in Bogota, Colombia. Federal courts have original jurisdiction over cases which implicate international treaties, and they have diversity jurisdiction when the plaintiff and defendant are not from within the same state. So this suit was clearly one which could be heard in federal court in New York. Now, the Montreal Convention is an international treaty signed in 1999 to standardize legal protections for air travelers, mainly by regularizing compensation for lost luggage. But it also contains a 2-year statute of limitations reckoned from the day of arrival at the destination. And you'll note that February of 2022 is more than 2 years after August of 2019, which meant that Mr. Mata was probably out of time and out of luck. But immediately upon removal, Avianca filed an answer denying all the allegations in Mata's admittedly bare-bones complaint, although the airlines conceded that, quote, a Roberto Mata was listed as a passenger on Avianca Flight 670 on August 27, 2019. And Avianca asserted several affirmative defenses, which is something that negates criminal or civil liability, even if the facts alleged are true. So for instance, Avianca claimed that if Mr. Mata was injured, it was as a result of either his own negligence or actions by another passenger. But for our purposes, we only care about 2 legal issues raised in the answer. The first is that the airline noted that it filed for bankruptcy way back in 2020, and Mata, as a creditor, had already missed his window to present a claim for monetary damages to the bankruptcy court. And second, Avianca's lawyers argued, quote, pursuant to Article 35 of the Montreal Convention, plaintiff's claims are barred because this action was commenced more than 2 years after the plaintiff arrived at his destination. Accordingly, plaintiff cannot sustain a claim under the Montreal Convention. Now, this put Mata's counsel in a pickle because it's what lawyers call black letter law that they'd waited 6 months too long to sue the airline. And that's even before you get to the bankruptcy issue. But luckily, the attorneys had an ace up their sleeve because while the defense attorneys had the law on their side, the plaintiff's attorneys had ChatGPT. Now, there's been a lot of talk lately about the potential for AI to revolutionize the practice of law. Most famously, entrepreneur Joshua Browder, CEO of the online task platform Do Not Pay, offered $1 million to any lawyer who would argue a Supreme Court case wearing an earpiece and speak the script produced by the company's chatbot, a version of ChatGPT. That obviously never happened because it was incredibly stupid, which we've covered on this channel. Now, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and it's a type of large language model, an LLM that scans vast quantities of data and then is trained to synthesize responses to questions using predictive modeling. Now, in its simplest form, a chatbot will answer your question by predicting what word comes next based on the information culled from whatever data set that it was trained on. And ChatGPT in particular is an AI chatbot released to the public by the research laboratory OpenAI in November of 2022. The problem, however, when it comes to the practice of law, is that right now chatbots are still prone to what are called hallucinations, or if you want to get technical, they just make stuff up sometimes. And they can even be trained to lie, something that Browder actually bragged about. In December, he tweeted that he trained his ChatGPT plugin to lie to a cable company in a service call. The AI just exaggerated internet outages similar to how a customer would. A customer who was okay with lying to another human being, I guess. Facing blowback from legal authorities for practicing law without a license, Browder eventually retreated and pulled most of the offerings, which could be classified as legal documents, off of his site. And although it's still billed as the world's first robot lawyer. But obviously, that wasn't going to be the end of the matter. Right now, lawyers are already using artificial intelligence to sort through reams of discovery documents, and it's probably inevitable that one day there will be models able to sort through case law and statutes effectively to help with legal research. But as Roberto Mata's lawyers discovered, that day is not today. Because in January of 2023, Avianca filed a motion to dismiss the case, citing the 2-year statute of limitations under the Montreal Convention and the pending bankruptcy. Now, Mata's lawyer, Peter Loduca, filed an opposition arguing that New York State's 3-year statute of limitations trumped the Montreal Convention's 2-year cap, or alternatively, that Avianca's bankruptcy told, that is, paused the statute of limitations, and thus there was still time for Mata's claim. Now, as a lawyer, I can tell you that this is a rather odd argument. The Montreal Convention exists to allow international businesses, which operate in multiple countries, to standardize their practices so they don't have to worry about dozens of different sets of local laws. And it would defeat the whole purpose of the treaty signed by the US government to allow individual states to impose their own regulations and statute of limitations on the airline carriers who happen to sell tickets to one of their residents. Nevertheless, Loduca argued that Mata was entitled to file in New York State court, and thus New York's 3-year statute of limitations applied to his claim. He wrote, quote, "It was the defendant Avianca who chose to remove the action to this court, the federal court, at which point the action was already commenced in a timely manner. Both federal and state courts alike have continually held that the Montreal Convention does not preempt state law remedies, and that plaintiffs are entitled to choose the forum in which to bring their claim." And in support of this argument, Loduca cited several federal court decisions, including one from the Fifth Circuit captioned Varghese versus China Southern Airlines, and one from the 11th Circuit called Zykerman versus Korean Airlines. Now, Avianca is represented in this dispute by a law firm called Condon Forsyth, which specializes in aviation law. And you can bet their bottom dollar that these guys probably know the Montreal Convention inside and out. So it might have come as a surprise to them to read a quotation from the Fifth Circuit saying that a bankruptcy filing told the statute of limitations under the Montreal Convention. But as you've probably already guessed, neither the Varghese decision or the Zykerman decision actually exist. And neither do at least 3 of the other cases cited in the Loduca filing. And in reply, Avianca's lawyers wrote, quote, "Although plaintiff ostensibly cites to a variety of cases in opposition to this motion, the undersigned has been unable to locate most of the cases cited in plaintiff's affirmation in opposition, and the few cases which the undersigned has been able to locate do not stand for the propositions for which they are cited." Which is basically lawyer speak for, you're in huge trouble. Now, you're watching this video, which means that you already know that many of these cases
I had stepped away. I'm sorry. He's talking fast because I'm playing it at 1.25. I'll play it normally. Sorry, guys.
Are not real. Now, there are a couple of possibilities here. One is that some of the lawyers could have asked ChatGPT to write the brief or portions of it, and ChatGPT cited 2 fake cases. The lawyer.
So that's exactly what ChatGPT does. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Now, I will give Newman, if he used ChatGPT for some of his pleadings, at least his most recent pleading. Yeah, no accusations here. But when he was in court last week, the judge asked him point blank, is there any case law to back up your legal argument? Now, some people, some lawyers would just slap, whatever it is in ChatGPT. ChatGPT would make up cases, and then at least the brief on its surface looks normal. But then after review, the judges go, well, wait a minute. That case doesn't exist. So yeah, that's a very common thing. So in this case, yeah, ChatGPT will absolutely make up cases if you ask for them, but they're not always going to be accurate or even exist.
to write the brief or portions of it, and ChatGPT cited two fake cases. The lawyer also could have just made them up. Lawyers write placeholder arguments all the time and then scrap them when the legal research turns out the wrong way. But given that the original brief cites case names with real-looking citations, it's likely that the lawyer just used ChatGPT and just didn't check the work that was generated. Now, we'll get to that in just a second. And that's when all hell broke loose, because on April 11th, Judge Castell issued a show cause order giving LaDuca a week to hand over the text of the decisions in Varghese, Zykerman, and the 7 other cases. Claiming to be, quote, out of the office on vacation, LaDuca requested and got an extra week to produce the opinions. Now, a couple things to note. New York judges are in the habit of just scribbling their answer on the motion itself. New York is just weird that way. There are some other jurisdictions that do that too. Sometimes it's just easier to just write stuff down on the thing that's presented to you. But also, if you are printing real opinions off of Westlaw or Lexis or any of the other legal databases that real lawyers use all the time, the task that was requested takes about 20 to 30 seconds. It does not require an extra week to complete. That's what we call foreshadowing. Now, a show cause order or order to show cause is an order from the judge that's basically, give me your best defense as to why I shouldn't sanction you. And that's what this briefing was all about. So on April 25th, LaDuca produced an affidavit stating that he was annexing 8 of the demanded decisions.
Again, I'm not going to accuse or make any accusations because being that he's watching this right now, or will be watching it probably the next 5 minutes because all he does is live on YouTube. He'll probably make an insulting community post. So he's like, oh, mailroom boy, his big fat wife had the nerve to accuse me of using ChatGPT. I'm going to sue him for hurt feelings. So, no accusations, even though I have him admitting that he doesn't do anything without ChatGPT's approval. I have that. I showed it to you. But I don't know.
But that the attached production, quote, may not be inclusive of the entire opinions, but only what it made available by online database, which is, that's not how humans, let alone lawyers, talk. It's the kind of thing that you write when you're hiding something. And he said that he had been unable to locate the Zykerman opinion at all.
What did I say? ChatGPT literally will make stuff up. Oh, you were unable to locate the case. It looks good on paper. But when it's time for the judge to review the case law, it doesn't exist.
And that's not good either. And in fact, this whole response is just nonsense. It is trivially easy to locate a federal court decision, particularly if you have the case site. You can download these decisions off the federal judiciary's website via Pacer. You can get it for free from Google Scholar.
Oh. Someone commented, he posted a picture of himself at like someone's court hearings. And he's like, and someone commented, oh, don't you look like a stumpy lumpy? I agree. And I don't see any difference. And he called out, I don't use that. I don't refer to audit them. I don't refer to him as that. I don't refer to him as that. But it's funny how Newman was upset referring to Dr. Dave as a racist for calling him Goat Boy, but then turns around and does the same thing to me. Make it make sense.
You can take a field trip to your local library and pull the appropriate volume off the shelf and snap a picture of it on your phone if you want to. And if you can't locate a federal case, that's because it doesn't exist. Now let's take a moment and talk about case citations. Now I know this is going to sound incredibly boring, but I promise you this is going to pay off in a huge way later on in this video. Now,
this part I will fast forward a bit because you guys don't care about this. In my field, we deal with case sites on a daily basis, but you guys don't care.
A case citation is something to let the court or opposing counsel know what case you are citing and where. And really it's just 3 things. It's a number, a couple of letters in the middle, and another number. Now let's start with the thing in the middle. That usually refers to the reporter in which the case appears. Now a reporter is a set of books, literal, actual physical books, that you could find in any law library that contains a whole bunch of cases. That's generally what a law library is there for. It's a compendium of all the cases that are out there. And here we're talking about federal cases. So if we look at the fake citation for Varghese, it has an F in the middle, and that F stands for the federal reporter. That is the volume of books that contain all of the federal cases, in particular the federal appeals court opinions. And it contains all of them. And in fact, there are so many of them that the 3D refers to the third edition of the Federal Reporter, i.e. newer cases than you might find in the second edition and older cases than you might find in the fourth edition. And then the first number refers to the volume. So 925 would be the 925th volume of the Federal Reporter. Like I said, there are a lot of these books. And then the second number is the page number of the volume. So 1339 is page 1339 of book 925. Easy. You're already smarter than these lawyers. And since you rarely actually look it up in the physical book, you just plug those numbers and letters into a search bar of a legal database or even Google Scholar, and bam, you go straight to the case. It's really, really easy. So basically, there's no defense for them not plugging the citation in and finding the actual cases and reading them. And we'll get to the completely fabricated opinions in a second, but the fact that they couldn't even find one of the decisions is a terrible result in and of itself. In all my years of practice, I have never filed anything without checking every single case citation to make sure that it is what it purports to be. Lawyers crib from other lawyers all the time, and you can never assume that the prior lawyer did their research. You have to go back, read the cases, and make sure that not only do they say what they're being cited for, but that there isn't some other part of the decision that's devastating for your case. Not to mention, you have to make sure that that case hasn't been overturned later on. So the fact that you can't find a case means that you didn't do your homework the first time around when this thing was submitted to the court. Very, very bad. But second of all, even a cursory examination of these cases would be enough to tell a practicing attorney that they were very clearly not real. And not just because of the bizarre pagination, shifting fonts, and apparently handwritten characters in the middle of the text. As the opening arguments podcast pointed out, the Varghese decision, supposedly out of the 11th Circuit, is credited to Judges Jordan, Rosenbaum, and Higginbotham. And while Judges Jordan and Rosenbaum do in fact sit on the 11th Circuit, Judge Patrick Higginbotham is a senior judge on the 5th Circuit. And similarly, the plaintiff is described as Susan Varghese, personal representative of the estate of George Scaria Varghese, and then a page later as Anish Varghese. And any amount of digging into these cases would prove that they were fake, not least because the internal citations, that is, the cases they refer to, are mostly, like the Zeikerman case that LaDuca couldn't find, are just made up. And it's not a coincidence that the two real decisions are upwards of 25 pages long, single-spaced and in tiny font, which is generally how long cases tend to be, especially in the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals in the 5th and 11th Circuits. While the cases that the plaintiff cited clock in at around 5 pages or less, which is just about the outer limit of what ChatGPT will produce.
Yeah,
That's a major red flag.
those type of Supreme Court cases, you know.
Dozens of pages. Like one of my first tasks, annotating cases and putting together case briefs. It's
Like, you're going through
one case. I had like 76 pages I had to go through.
So yeah, 5 pages for no.
And practically written in crayon. But Avianca's lawyers at Condon are professionals, and clearly they didn't want to gild the lily here, so they just responded the next day with a polite letter to the court saying, quote, respectfully submitting that the authenticity of many of these cases is questionable. So this occasioned a second show cause order from Judge Castell, who was clearly good and mad at that point, and he wrote, quote, the court is presented with an unprecedented circumstance. A submission filed by a plaintiff's counsel in opposition to a motion to dismiss is replete with citations to non-existent cases. 6 of the submitted cases appear to be bogus judicial decisions with bogus quotes and bogus internal citations. Set forth
Bogus.
The judge, the judge was pissed off because some judges can be snarky. If the judge had said non-existence or incomplete citations,
That would have been one thing, but
the fact that he used the term bogus judicial decisions, bogus quotes, and bogus internal citations, yeah, that judge was pretty pissed off.
below is an order to show cause why plaintiff's counsel ought not be sanctioned. And the judge went on to say that he called up the 11th Circuit himself and confirmed that there is no Varghese opinion, and he went through all of the bogus internal citations in the fake Varghese opinion that LaDuca submitted to the court. He told LaDuca to show up on June 8th and explain why he shouldn't be in deep, deep trouble. Now, as a lawyer, seeing the mistakes made by these attorneys is honestly extremely hard to watch, because it didn't have to be that way. There are great lawyers all over the country, and now my firm, the Eagle Team, is accepting new clients.
Absolutely, we're not. Yeah. You make enough money. I'm not plugging you in any way, legal. No disrespect. I love your videos. I ain't plugging you in no way. You make a million times more than I do. So yeah, you don't need the money.
The Eagle Team. Just click on the link below. So 3 weeks later, Loduca filed an affidavit with the court in which he explained that he'd done none of the legal work on this case, despite his name being on the filings. Now that's not terribly unusual. It looks like what happened here is he was acting as local counsel, which means that if you're an out-of-state attorney with a client, but you need someone with a law license in a particular state, you reach out to someone who sort of double checks things and files the actual filings. And Loduca explained that it was instead Stephen Schwartz, one of his colleagues at the law firm of Levidow and Oberman, had been responsible for the case from the beginning. Only Schwartz wasn't licensed to appear in federal court, so when the case was removed from state court, he continued to do the work and let Loduca take the credit. Which is not a great excuse,
whatsoever.
even though Loduca says he's been practicing law with Schwartz since 1996 and had no reason to doubt his buddy's abilities. But the thing is, as an attorney, you are responsible for absolutely everything that has your name and signature on it. And frankly,
which is something with a lot of these bogus lawsuits, I think people are failing to understand, or, whoever is putting their name to the documentation, because that sticks with you. Like, if you are tasked by the judge to submit a 5-page brief and you put together a 2-page affirmation and literally add a whole bunch of extra stuff to then make up 5 pages, and then you put your name on that pleading, that sticks with you.
It does.
Avianca's motion in March saying, hey, we can't find these cases on Westlaw, following the court's order to produce them, probably would have prompted any reasonable lawyer to check the case sites himself before submitting them to the court with a notarized affidavit swearing that they were good. And Loduca's affidavit was accompanied by an affidavit from Schwartz stating that, quote, it was in consultation with the generative artificial intelligence website ChatGPT that your affiant did locate and cite the following cases in the affirmation and opposition submitted, which this court has found to be non-existent. Schwartz then threw himself on the mercy of the court for his mistake in relying, quote, on the legal opinions provided to him by a source that has revealed itself to be unreliable.
But
So, in essence, he's saying, at the time when I used ChatGPT, I assumed it would be reliable. But that's the point. When you're an attorney, you have to double check,
triple check, quadruple check, because it sticks on your record forever.
There's no way any logical attorney would slap a topic into ChatGPT, ChatGPT produced something, and then not read what was put together.
He explained that he'd never used ChatGPT to do legal research before and was, quote, unaware of the possibility that its content could be false. Schwartz said that Loduca had nothing to do with his screw-up and that he had, quote, no intent to deceive this court nor the defendant. He finished by saying that, quote, he greatly regretted having utilized generative artificial intelligence to supplement the legal research performed herein and will never do so in the future without absolute verification of its authenticity. Schwartz also attached undated screenshots of him allegedly asking ChatGPT if Varghese was real and being assured that they absolutely were, which is,
not how you research.
Not how you research, let alone a 9th grade essay about mating habits of pandas, much less a legal brief submitted in federal court. But by now, all of law Twitter was losing its mind at the insane spectacle courtesy of Mike Dunford, who popularized this total debacle. And Judge Castell was volcanically furious. And the next day, the court entered a 3rd show cause order commanding Schwartz and the Levidow law firm to get themselves down to the courthouse along with Loduca to explain what the hell was going on and why they shouldn't be all sanctioned for their activities. And he added a new demand to know why they shouldn't be punished for, quote, the use of a false and fraudulent notarization in the affidavit filed on April 25th. Because some of the documents require that the signature line be authenticated by a witness who has demonstrated that he or she is a person in good character. Now, typically that witness is called a notary public, and they've been licensed by the state to verify with a special stamp or seal that the document was signed in their presence by the person whose name appears on it. And Loduca's April 25th affidavit accompanying the fake cases he submitted to the court was notarized by Schwartz, which is weird, even taking into consideration that lots of attorneys in New York maintain a notary certification, because every other document in plaintiff's case was notarized by the same Levidow paralegal. But this document, in which Loduca seems to take responsibility for what looks like fraud on the court perpetrated by Schwartz, is notarized by Schwartz himself. And even weirder, it's dated January 25th, not April 25th.
No, you cannot notarize your own documents. Hey, David, you cannot notarize your own documents. Anyone knows that. He notarized his own oh my God. Oh my God.
Loduca seems to take responsibility for what looks like fraud on the court perpetrated by Schwartz, is notarized by Schwartz himself. And even weirder, it's dated January 25th, not April 25th. But as we discussed, the cases that they submitted to the judge were weird. The formatting was wrong. They were very short. They have the wrong judges. The parties are wrong. And the analysis is basically nonsense. Basically, getting caught citing to fake cases, they then took all that time to write the cases out as best they could. It's hard to say. But the lawyers say that they asked ChatGPT for the underlying cases, and when they got back a small amount of text, they thought it was giving them excerpts from real cases. Which still is not a defense. You need the entire case to be able to be sure that it stands for what you're citing it for, but that's beside the point. At base though, it's clear that no one checked or read the cases that were cited when they wrote the original brief. And we also know that the fabricated cases were not created until the court asked the lawyers to look into them, which is bad. It's extremely bad. So at this point, it dawned on the plaintiff's lawyers that something very bad was about to happen. A whole squad of outside lawyers entered their appearances on behalf of Schwartz and Levidow on one hand and Loduca on the other. And these lawyers very gingerly suggested that if the court was in a mood to postpone the June 8th hearing, they'd sure appreciate a few extra days to get up to speed. Now, Judge Castell testily replied to Schwartz and Levidow's request by granting them 2 extra days for their written reply, noting that the hearing remained scheduled for June 8th, 2023. And his reply to Loduca was even more ominous, stating, Mr. Loduca is differently situated from Mr. Schwartz and the firm. He has availed himself of a full and fair opportunity to respond to the court's OSC regarding non-existent case law and 3 possible grounds for sanctions. He is not entitled to a do-over. So the lawyers filed their response, and they basically doubled down on the theory that Schwartz was too dumb to be mendacious and Loduca just wasn't paying attention. And the judge then called the hearing and made both of these attorneys actually take the stand and testify under oath. Oh my God. Now, before I get to what happened in court, I need to teach you a new word. It's a word that my German friends explained to me a few years back, and my God, does it apply here. The word is Fremdschämen. In other words, to feel secondhand embarrassment or to feel ashamed about something someone else has done, to be embarrassed because someone else has embarrassed themselves. So with that new vocabulary word in mind, let's look to what happened at the hearing. And thanks to the inner city press, we know roughly what happened in court. And Judge Castell asked Loduca to testify first. So Judge Castell asked Loduca under oath, what was your understanding of your obligation in connection with your March 1 submission under Rule 11? Loduca responds, to be factual and truthful, I relied on my colleague Stephen Schwartz with me at Levidow and Oberman. Did you do anything other than sign your affirmation? Did you read any of the cases? No. Did you do anything to make sure that these cases existed? No.
No. What do you mean no? What type of lawyer goes into federal court, puts a pleading together, or in this case, doesn't put a pleading together, slaps their name on it, notarizes it, and doesn't even read it? Oh my, that's so dumb. Oh my God.
Then Avianca replied, I did not read it. Later on, the judge asked, do you recall writing to me you were going on vacation and the court giving you until April 25th? Yes. Was it true that you were going on vacation? No, Judge. Pro tip, boy.
He lied. Sorry. What? Jesus.
Do not lie to the judge ever, either verbally or in writing. Just don't do it, because otherwise you might have to admit that you lied to the judge under oath. The judge asked, you did not see this was a bogus case? No. You see that it was in different fonts, a little bit larger. Who typed this? I believe it was Mr. Schwartz. And again, I'll note, acting as basically local counsel, it wasn't crazy that another lawyer was doing most of the work here, but when that lawyer submits a filing and signs it, they're responsible.
Better make sure that they actually read it and know what they're putting their name, or attaching rather, their name to.
For everything that's in that filing. Ah, boy, not a good look. And with that background, Schwartz then takes the stand, and Judge Castell asks, how many cases have you done? 1,000? Yes. How do you conduct legal research? I research cases. Do you read them? Yes. The judge asked, did you prepare the March 1 memo? Yes, I used Fastcase, but it did not have federal cases that I needed to find. I tried Google. I had heard of ChatGPT. All right, what did it produce for you? I asked it questions. About the Montreal Convention or the position you wanted to take? Yes, for our position. You were not asking for an objective view, but cases to support your position? I asked it for its analysis. Did you ask ChatGPT what the law was or only for a case to support you? It wrote a case for you. Do you cite cases without reading them? No. What caused your departure here? I thought ChatGPT was a search engine. And basically what you can see here is that there was no good answer.
It's never good when your back's to the wall like this to use terms like I thought, I believed, or I assumed. In the legal field, that will kill you. That is not an excuse. If ignorance of the law is not a defense for non-attorneys, imagine what ignorance of the law as a defense is for actual attorneys. They will be eviscerated.
Yes, he has to claim that he reads all the cases, but he clearly didn't read the cases here. The judge catches him in a lie, and he basically has no defense, or at least no good defense here. Because even if ChatGPT was a search engine, he didn't read the underlying cases, and as a result, he cited a bunch of fake cases. And on top of that, the ChatGPT transcripts that were provided to the court continually say that it cannot provide legal advice, and it's a language model and cannot access real-time legal databases or provide up-to-date case law. And the thing about case law is it has to be up-to-date. And then, days later, fabricated a bunch of cases, possibly using ChatGPT, and that's not gonna save him here. And that's why the judge leans in. Did you look for the Varghese case? Yes, I couldn't find it. And yet, you cited it in your filing. I had no idea ChatGPT made up cases. I was operating under a misperception. Mr. Schwartz, I think you were selling yourself short. You say you verify cases. I thought there were cases that could not be found on Google. 6 cases, none found on Google. This non-existent case Varghese, the excerpt you had was inconsistent, even on the first page. Can we agree that's legal gibberish?
Yes, which we'll get to in a second, I believe, in this case. Absolutely. Not only would the attorney be under review, attorneys could be disbarred for this.
See that now. I thought it was excerpts. Man, you can cut the Frem Shaman with a knife right now. Judge Castell continues. Avianca put your cases in quotations. You know what F3D means, right? To which Schwartz replies, Federal District 3rd Department? No! We went over this. What? It's a book that contains cases. What? I have one right here. Look, it's the Federal Reporter. This is the 2nd edition. It contains a bunch.
A lawyer doesn't know what federal... Really? He didn't know what F.3 did. Wow.
No.
Wow.
We went over this. It's a book that contains cases.
That is the definition of an incompetent attorney right there. Oh my goodness.
I have one right here.
Even a stupid paralegal like myself knows that.
Here, look. It's the Federal Reporter. This is the 2nd edition. It contains a bunch of cases, the things you're supposed to read before you...
Hey there, Boot.
You submit stuff to federal court. It's not a federal district, and it's definitely not the 3rd Department. So the judge then asks, have you heard of the Federal Reporter? And he says, yes. The judge asks, that's a book, right? Correct. Glad we're on the same page, finally. The judge goes in for the kill one more time and asks, so you were the one going on vacation returning on April 18th? Yes. When you saw the court's order, it wanted to see the cases. Did it cross your mind that the court checked for the cases? I wanted to comply. And the judge continues. You told me that ChatGPT supplemented your research, but what was it supplementing? I'd used Fastcase at the beginning. ChatGPT wasn't supplementing your research, it was your research, right? Yes. Yeah, so the media has talked about how this is lawyers using ChatGPT and things going awry, but what it's really revealing is that these lawyers just did an all-around terrible job, and it just happened to tangentially involve ChatGPT. There are no good answers here. And so the judge summarized at the end, okay, some final comments. I will be taking this under advisement and entering a written decision. It's been called a mistake, but there's more. The record will reflect whether that put Mr. Schwartz and Mr. LaDuca on actual notice that their cases were non-existent. Mr. LaDuca was asked for the cases, we know what he did, and Mr. Schwartz did. Man, I just want to die. And I wasn't even involved in this case. Frem Shaman, man, RIP. Now, I've always been skeptical about AI lawyers on this channel, but hey, it can't be worse than these two. Mr. Schwartz and Mr. LaDuca probably would have benefited from today's sponsor, 80,000 Hours. They're a nonprofit that helps people find careers that aim at solving the world's most
I think that's it. I think that's it. I mean, he's just gonna like advertise stuff. Woo! Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, do not use ChatGPT if you need a legal matter resolved. Hire an attorney. And then make sure the attorney doesn't use ChatGPT himself. Now, if you're like some lawyers that admit that you use ChatGPT for everything, yeah, not a smart move whatsoever. All right, guys. These lunchtime streams are supposed to be no more than a half hour. I got to get back to work, but I just found that super intriguing. Ooh, we're talking about Boot. I hopped off. I couldn't. These late streams you do, bro. You got some of the best streams out there, and I try and stay on as long as I can. But the other night when we were on panel to like 1 something, I can't do that, bro. I can't do that. So it's good that you're here. But yeah, man, these streams are long. Man, I gotta actually rewatch when I hopped off, see how it ended with Ryder, because that was Jesus Christ, Chris. We all know Chris is lying all over the place. That's all Chris is able to do. All he's able to do. I just thought it was nice. His little robe he came on, and then he was all wrapped up, and he was curled up in a blanket. Like, dummy, come on. Yeah, I had coffee, mail, or whatever. All right, guys, I got to go back to my real job in the mail. My job. Whatever. All right, fellas, ladies and gals, but whatever. Love y'all. Gotta go. Bye-bye. Oh, wait. Hold on. I have an outro, don't I? I do. All right. Love you guys. See you guys soon.
Now, everybody say goodbye for about the 7th time to the newest Frauder Mania YouTube handle he has created. Go create you a few more, because Eagle Nick Audits is fixing to send you out the door.
Oh, what an assault.
Fuck you up. Say my mom again, bro. Say my mom again. Say my mom again, bro. Say my mom again. Say it again, bro. Say it again. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck out of here, boy.
Are you serious right now?
Let's go.
Don't you touch me. Don't you put hands on me. This is a lawsuit, sir.
Okay.
Everybody see what's happening? Look at this.